want to say, welcome to everybody. Thanks for bearing with us with our few little technology glitches and getting everybody connected. I hope everybody's staying warm and safe through this wintry weather we're experiencing. For those of you who may be logging into their first Cornell Cooperative Extension program, please know that Cornell Cooperative Extension, or CCE, is the local arm of Cornell University, which is our land-grant university here in New York State. We help apply knowledge and research through the land-grant system to enhance the quality of life of our local residents. Cornell Cooperative Extension provides a wide range of programs, and we like to think that we have something for everyone. CCE has something for everyone, and I encourage you all to reach out to your local cooperative extension. If you're not from Rensselaer County, you have one likely right in your own backyard. Tonight, you'll experience a program for consumers that falls within our food systems program area for CCE of Rensselaer County. Our Back to Home Basics series is designed to tackle a topic and cover it from nuts to bolts, making connections and parallels to sustainability. Before we get started, any reference to brands, businesses, or specific products is done so only for educational purposes, and it is not an endorsement. I would also like to remind everyone about our Harvest Connection consumer website, which helps consumers in the Capital District of New York find local foods and agricultural products straight from the farm. Just some technical reminders. Please place any questions you may have as we navigate through the evening in the chat box. We'll be checking the chat box periodically to address those questions or comments. Additionally, you can control to a certain extent on your screen what you see. You can go to the upper right-hand corner and select the type of view you would like to use. We will be playing at least one pre-recorded video tonight, and you may need, when we shift to that, adjust your audio on your own device. This is being recorded, as Mary Lee mentioned. Our goal is to have the recording processed in the next couple of days, and we will send out the link to that recording, which will be found on our CCE Rensselaer County YouTube channel, as well as informational page with a link to a jerky bulletin that will have all the information we include tonight and much, much more. So that it also reinforces what Mary Lee had said in the beginning, that don't worry taking notes. We're gonna follow up with anything you need to pick up what we shared tonight. I would like to thank in advance and introduce our presenters tonight. Marjorie Anna Triello is front and center on my screen. She's a master food preserver with a background in finance and accounting. She and her husband have started up their own farm, Anna Triello Family Farm in Johnsonville, and has just joined Harvest Connection. Marjorie is a master of many things, not just food preservation, but her roots are in agriculture, and she grew up in a home that always had a large garden, grew their own livestock for meat. And additionally, Marjorie, as you will find out, is an avid outdoors woman, and you are sure to learn a great deal from her tonight. And I would add a past 4-H member in Rensselaer County. Another panelist tonight will be Jessica Zim. Her profession and her personal life are highly correlated, having grown up on a dairy farm raising nationally recognized jerseys to reigning as the New York State Dairy Princess in her latter teen years. She has worked for New York State Ag and Markets, New York State Animal Agriculture Coalition, and she was the catalyst and the sweat behind the initiation of the Dairy Cattle Birthing Center at the New York State Fair. She now holds a position with CCE of Washington County, working with agricultural economic development. Currently, she and her husband are raising their family on their family farm, which is Tyashoke Farm in Buskirk. Tyashoke Farm is also a member of Harvest Connection, and she will be sharing wonderful tidbits about Tyashoke Farm and the connection to jerky and more, as well as the value of supporting and buying local product. And she also is a past 4-H member in Rensselaer County. So also I'm going to introduce Brian Panzari. He's a New York State Environmental Conservation Officer, working in the Capital District since 2002 and currently covering Rensselaer County. He's committed to the betterment of the environment, and on the side, he is the creator of the Capital District Sportsman Facebook page, which has about 6,500 members, and founder of the soon-to-be Capital District Sportsman Center, a school for outdoors. So stay tuned for information on that. He will be talking about the sustainability of our environment. Brian will address the seasons, licensing, and relationship, hunting and harvesting wild meat, and how it enhances our beautiful open spaces. And last but not least is Mike Cardis. He's a head butcher for ShopRite. He is uniquely qualified to be part of our panel tonight as an avid hunter, fisherman, and outdoorsman. Also, he is a seasoned butcher and slaughterman with 20 years experience. He currently lives in Albany and grew up in Columbia County. His favorite part of being a butcher is teaching people how to do it. He is a member of the Capital District Sportsman Group led by Brian. And he's looking forward to contributing to the Capital District Sportsman Center as the instructor and key leader. So we've got a really good bevy of knowledge here tonight. So at this point, I'm just going to pass it right on over to Marjorie.
Okay, I think I got it unmuted. So yeah, I'm Marjorie Triello. Like Bernie said, I have done it all and then some. So after this, there's going to be a short video of how I make my jerky. I make venison jerky almost 99% of the time. I'm not a big beef eater. Oddly enough, I raise beef. So, but I got interested in making jerky because it's just portable. You can take it wherever you go. When you're, you harvest your venison in November, December, and then it's ice fishing season. So you take it with you. Or you could just be snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, whatever you like to do. I like to be outdoors, so it's just easier to throw it in a bag and take it with you. It's very healthy for you because the leaner the meat, the better it is to make your jerky with. So that's great. There are a couple of different ways of making your jerky. I'm going to show you one today that I pasteurized after dehydrating. There is another route where you can pasteurize it prior to dehydration. I prefer this the way that I do it. I think it's just one less mess, I guess, that you don't have to boil it on the stove or anything. So anyway, if you want to play the video.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and play that video. Hopefully it's right underneath my screen here.
Meanwhile, Bernie, I had a couple of pointers, so when people look at that video, they might pay close attention to them.
Perfect.
So a couple things to look for, and I'm calling them the Safety 7. It's the USDA recommendations to taking food safety steps when making meat or poultry jerky at home to avoid any pathogenic risks. So there are 7 of them. If you can remember 3 or 4, that'd be fabulous, and the other 7 will be in the guide sheet. Or excuse me, the other 3 or 4 will be in the guide sheet. I can give you a couple of hints though. Some of the most obvious ones are, of course, always wash your hands thoroughly with soap and water before and after working with meat products. And Mike and Brian kick in here anytime. Having, being butchers, that anything I share here, please embellish anytime you'd like.
I'm actually ready, Mary Lee.
Ready? Okay.
Okay.
That's it.
Hi, I'm Marjorie Triello, and I'd like to show you how to properly prepare some jerky. First, I'm going to start with my meat. I've chosen venison that I harvested last fall. I chose venison because it's a lean meat. The more fat and marbling you have in your meat, the more quickly it will go rancid. So I'm going to start slicing my meat thinly and evenly. you don't want one thick piece and then one very thin piece. So once I'm done slicing my pieces, I'm going to put them in a Tupperware like this because I like to marinate them in a moist marinade.
Excuse me, Bernie, can you see that? We can't see the video.
That's what I'm going to be
Okay,
filming
I
with.
just,
While my meat was marinating, I took the time to prepare my dehydrator.
A couple people in the chat box said they can hear her, but they cannot see the video.
Soap and water, and I disinfected the trays in a solution of 1 teaspoon of bleach to 1 gallon of water, and I left.
okay. Okay, bear with me here. For some reason, proceed with any questions you might have right now, Mary Lee. I have the video here. I just am, it's just not connecting like it normally does for me.
Well, Margie, it sounded great. You were kicking right into some of those safety things. And then I saw on, I think it was Mike, was that you who said, I can tell you a quick and easy way to remember all 7 of those safety guidelines with USDA? Was it you, Mike? I can't see on the video right now. Excuse me. Oh, maybe you can't hear me. Anyway, I'll go on with them. Well, Margie, can you hear me? Okay. Well, the USDA, another
Yeah,
one
I
is,
can hear you clearly.
okay. Well, why don't you tell us a couple of them offhand, the safety, I know you'll be telling us in a moment, but a couple things to look for, like, a couple of hints. Don't make it too easy.
Why don't you just go ahead and list off the 7? I don't have them.
Okay, sure.
I don't want to.
Yes.
I don't want to
understand.
miss anything. You know.
Right. Yep. Well, always wash your hands thoroughly with soap and water before and after working with meat products. Very clearly, that would be the best thing. And use clean equipment and utensils, of course. And keep meat and poultry refrigerated at 40 degrees or slightly below. And use or freeze ground beef and poultry within 2 days, whole red meats within 3 to 5 days. Oh, if you want to put Mike on the screen, he'd take us through that, Bernie, if you're able to do that. He offered to share that. I think Brian is muted, and I think Mike might be muted too. All right, I can make the next one into a quiz. Do you think it's a good idea to marinate, to defrost the meat on your kitchen counter? What do you think? Good idea? Absolutely not. Christine, thank you. Amanda, thank you. Absolutely, technically no. Christine says, absolutely not. Put it, defrost it slowly in the refrigerators directly from the freezer. You usually do defrost in the fridge, and that is the USDA recommended. Another one is to marinate meat in the refrigerator. Don't save the marinade. Do you think you should reuse it? Absolutely not. Do not reuse the marinade. And there are 2 things marinades are used for. 2 things. To do what? Tenderize and flavor the jerky before dehydrating it. So we don't save it, and is used for tenderizing and flavoring. Is it used for preservation? No. USDA says only for tenderizing and for flavor. Another one is to, what is the secret, the magic temperature to make sure you steam or roast the meat to make sure it's safe? What is that highest number that we should make sure we do? Okay, it's 160 degrees. It has to reach 160 degrees. And for poultry, 165 degrees, as measured with the food thermometer. And I happen to have this in my hand ready for later. But I wanted to, while you're waiting, to decide which of these thermometers would be recommended by the USDA to use for meats. You can say yes or no on this one. Anybody want to offer a yes or no on this one? Would this be a good one? Brenda says yes. Great job. Absolutely. How about this one? Margie, that's a good one, right? Okay, don't look at Margie. She's giving you answers. Okay, but somebody's going to have to explain why not. Here's another one. This is a really kind of interesting one. You can see with this. What do you think of this one? Brenda figures this one's for candy, which is not a bad idea, but I think she's right. Would this be another one that would work? Yep, Brenda and Christine are both, they're right on top of this because they're answering all the time. And Amanda, thank you. Absolutely. And what about this one? To poke it right in there. Absolutely.
Okay.
And you can see, you can read pretty well.
So Mary Lee, I think I've got it.
Yay.
Yeah, yay. We hope so. Okay, bear with us. Thanks for your patience, everybody. Here we go, hopefully.
Thanks for your participation. There she is.
Hi, I'm Marjorie Anistriello, and I'd like to show you how to properly prepare some jerky. First, I'm going to start with my meat. I've chosen venison that I harvested last fall. I chose venison because it's a lean meat. The more fat and marbling you have in your meat, the more quickly it will go rancid. So I'm going to start slicing my meat thinly and evenly. You don't want one thick piece and then one very thin piece. So once I'm done slicing my pieces, I'm going to put them in a Tupperware like this because I like to marinate them in a moist marinade. Some people do dry, I like the moist, and that's what I'm going to be showing you today. While my meat was marinating, I took the time to prepare my dehydrator. To prepare my dehydrator, I washed it with warm soapy water, and I disinfected the trays in a solution of 1 teaspoon of bleach to 1 gallon of water, and I left it in that solution for 7 seconds. After that, I took the trays out and dried them. Once everything was dry, I started preheating my dehydrator. I have it preheating. I have a specific setting. I have it preheating to 155 degrees. I'm going to start loading the meat onto the trays. While you're doing this, you want to make sure that your meat is laying flat and that you're leaving room between each piece so that the air can properly circulate. So when you're done loading your meat into your dehydrator, you're gonna let it rest for at least an hour. It'll start to harden the top of the jerky, but how my trays are set up, and I'll take one out to show you. On that X, my jerky will stay moist for an extremely long time. So I flip my jerky halfway through dehydrating. I rotate the trays as well, front to back to front. So I took it out this way, I'm gonna put it back in this way. So about every hour, I'm going to check on it to see how it's going. So I've already flipped these. They still feel a bit too moist. You're looking for a leathery consistency, a leathery feel. If it cracks and breaks, it's over dry now. So I'm gonna keep an eye on this. It shouldn't take too much longer. It's been about, it's been about 5 hours. But the amount of time in the dehydrator also depends on how thick you sliced your pieces. Unless you use a meat slicer, you're not gonna get the same slices twice. So keep an eye on it. You're looking for that leathery consistency. And then we're gonna go ahead and pasteurize it in the oven. So my jerky has been dehydrating for an additional 45 minutes. In that 45 minutes, I have preheated my oven to 275 degrees. The jerky is going to come from the dehydrator, and it's going to go straight onto a baking sheet. And this process is pasteurization of your jerky. It's to kill any leftover bacteria before we go ahead and store it for any length of time. So you know your jerky is done when you have a nice leathery consistency. It doesn't break, it's not brittle, and it's not juicy or too spongy. So if you have a really fat piece, it'll still be spongy. I have some really fat pieces on another tray, which I'm going to leave in there until I'm ready to pasteurize those as well. I've just taken my jerky out of a 275 degree oven after 10 minutes. That will kill any leftover bacteria. So after that is done and your jerky has cooled to room temperature, I'm going to store it in an airtight container. Stored in an airtight container, your jerky will last 2 weeks at room temperature. It can last 3 to 6 months in the refrigerator, and it can last up to a year if stored properly in the freezer.
Okay, thank you, Margie. Yep, thank you very much, Margie. That was great. Back to the, excuse me, I wanted to review something. So you were saying, can you hear me, Margie, and will you be able to respond?
Yep.
Okay, okay, good. You were saying it lasts about 2 weeks in the, at room temperature in the jar?
Yep.
Okay, and if you wanted to have it last longer?
In the refrigerator for 3 to 6 months, or if you wanted to freeze it, you could freeze it for up to a year.
Okay. I couldn't quite understand that because it was garbly, but I didn't quite catch that. I'm sorry. Can you repeat that now?
What didn't you catch?
How long that was? I know it was in the video, but I was just trying to review.
A year in the freezer.
Okay, okay, that's incredible. That's great. Okay, and the okay, so what I just want to know one thing. What's your favorite jerky besides venison? But what's the flavor you like?
I just used a quick teriyaki marinade from the grocery mart.
Oh, okay. And we have a question in the chat box. It says, how long do you marinate?
On the bottle of marinade, it says 30 minutes. I usually do it overnight.
Okay. And Brenda wants to know, how much quicker does a dry rub take to dry versus wet marinade?
I'm sure it would be a whole lot quicker. I'm not sure. I have always used a wet marinade.
Okay, we can check on that. So we'll find that out for sure. And what if your dehydrator doesn't have a preheat setting?
There's no, I don't have a preheat setting. I just set it to the temperature that jerky is set to be dehydrated at, and I preheat it for 10 minutes.
I see.
Just like your oven, it's not going to tell you, you know, except it won't tell you when it gets to temperature. You just do it for 10 minutes, and you can check it with an oven thermometer, or you can check it with something along those lines.
And another question someone has is, can you dehydrate in the oven? This is from Bethany. Can you use a dehydrator? Do you need a dehydrator, or can you dehydrate in the oven?
If your oven has a setting that low, so if your oven has a setting of 160 degrees, then yes. The other problem you're going to reach when you are trying to use your oven is if you have the proper air circulation. Essentially, you're just going to cook it in the oven. You're not going to have that same air drying that you would have in the dehydrator.
Right. One of the attendees said a lot of ovens have a setting of 170 as a minimum. So that's what you're pointing out to.
Right.
Yeah, I see that. And any homemade recipes for wet marinade? Do you have any? We can get some of the USDA.
No, I just cheap and easy. I just pick up a bottle of teriyaki marinade, and I usually throw hot sauce in it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I have used the recipes with USDA, and they give you a little option on the seasoning. Somebody was asking, how can you make the marinade spicy? How can you make your jerky spicy? What would you add?
Hot. An extra hot sauce. Yeah. Okay. And you can pepper it before you. If you're using a wet marinade, it's easier to add. If you wanted a pepper flavor or a spicier flavor, you can pepper it as it goes into the dehydrator because it's moist and the pepper will stick to it. That's one of my preferred ways as well.
I see. Okay. All right. So sourcing meats, Margie, would you like to tell us about your family farm and the goals that you have for being self-sustaining? We'd really like to hear that.
And Margie, I can bring up your pictures. How's that?
Okay.
Okay, hang on.
Thanks, Margie.
Mm-hmm. Everybody see that? Oh, there's more. So this is essentially my backyard. This is our hay field. This is off my back deck. And once you hit the woods, that's where I harvest my venison. So this is one of the new fields that we put in. We just started our farm. Well, technically just started our farm this year. No, excuse me, 2020 was a tough year all around. But we started it. This is a picture of our newest field with some of our heifers in it. We raise Black Angus and lowline Angus. So they're just kind of a shorter Angus cow. Sorry, go ahead. The next slide is, I just wanted to point out that we do hope in the future to take some of our Angus to our great Rensselaer County Fair, the Scotticoke Fair, where we are already very active in the Rensselaer County Fair. That was our tallest sunflower, which didn't win. It's very big though. But my daughter did win with some marigolds and she did plant them. I don't let her get away with any of that stuff. So Yeah, so this is my daughter Beatrice. She's 4 years old now. She's standing, strangely enough, she's standing with our bull, and he is one of the sweetest little guys. The other one that we have a halter on is just one of our Angus cross heifers that we've started to raise, and you can do chores in a dress. Some of our new equipment, as we all know, it was a very difficult year for hay. So we have a chopper there to extend our hay season. Essentially, we try to feed as little grain as possible. We try to, and with this, we know where our feed came from. We try to do everything here. Everything is natural, not necessarily organic as possible, but we don't use pesticides or herbicides, but I'm sure it's on other things. Again, this is our new toy, I guess. It's our chopper that extended our hay season for us. So we didn't have to store the hay. It was just sit out under the hay wagon, and we were able to feed it right from there. So that was nice. This was our first calf that was born on our farm. She was born early in the morning, and her mother pushed her through the fence, and I had to, all you could hear was mooing at 3 o'clock in the morning. So it's a never ending job, but it was fun to meet her for the first time. And so that's our low line Angus. Friends and family helping build our newest addition, our barn. We needed hay storage, and this has a hay loft in the top, and it's going to be put into use very soon, actually. So we're very happy. Again, it's a big barn. This is our low-line Angus again with her new heifer. The heifer calf was born in September, and we hope great things from her. We would love to take her to the fair. She's a great looking cow. This shows how farming is really a family event. Everybody goes out to feed the cows. This was actually my daughter's posing with our bull, Eddie. That was his birthday. He was 1 year old that day. And that's my newest daughter, Ellie. She had to come out and help feed the cows with mom and dad. And this is Diamond and Heidi. These, again, the same pair that we've been seeing. Look at how she's grown. She's looking great. Just a beautiful winter picture of the two girls that we'd love to take to the fair. Can't wait. Hopefully we have one this year. They'll be a great addition to the Scotticoke Fair.
Thank you, Margie. What is the name of your farm? Did I miss that?
It's just our name. It's the Anna Triello Family Farm.
Triello Family Farm. We look forward to seeing you at the fair, that's for sure. And your kids in the 4-H program too, for sure.
Yes.
Full disclosure, Margie was a 4-H'er when I was a leader for quite a long time, but glad to see you doing these amazing things with your life. It's phenomenal. So, and thank you so much for sharing tonight what you have so far. I'm just trying to check the chat box on this. Excuse me for a second. Someone did say they added liquid smoke too. I wondered if that, I just wanted to point that out, that when they make their jerky also. So Margie, thank you so much. Our next person up is Jessica Zim. She's from the Tyashoke farm. She's going to share some information about their operation and products and the benefits of supporting local farms. And I think Bernie's going to share her screen. Jessica, are you there?
Yep,
I see you. Hi, welcome. Thank you for coming. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
It's post-disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay, hang on, Jess.
Okay. Hey, Kelly. And I got to figure out how to.
You should be set now.
Okay, now I just need to, hang on. I thought I was all set with this. So, oh, share screen. Here we are. This one.
Meanwhile, while Jessica does that, if you want to share, if the participants want to share their favorite kind of jerky or where you're zooming from, we'd be very glad to know that. I think we're ready though, right?
Okay. Hey, everybody. So my name is Jessica Zim, and our farm is called Tyashoke Farm. We're located in Buskirk, New York, which is right on the border of Washington and Rensselaer counties. I grew up in Rensselaer County as a 4-H'er with Bernie, and I grew up on a dairy farm. I'm actually a 4th-generation dairy farmer. And so on our farm, we are here to talk about beef, but first and foremost, we are a dairy farm. And so first and foremost, we are a dairy farm, and we are a 1,000-cow dairy that markets our milk through the Agrimark Milk Cooperative, which owns the Cabot and Macadam cheese brands. So we are a dairy farm. We farm with our family. This is my father-in-law and the skid steer there. It's my husband and his brother. Everybody has a different role on our farm, and it's a pretty big operation because lots of family members that came back to the farm to do this. Almost 10 years ago, we've always processed our own beef for the family, for some friends, typically just Holsteins. But about 10 years ago, we decided that we were going to, I think I'm jumping ahead. I'm sorry, we're a 4th-generation farm. This is my family. This picture's a little bit old. My kids are now 8 and 10. But even though we are a 1,000-cow dairy farm, we are very much a family farm. Lots of kids, lots of Zims running around in all different aspects. But about 10 years ago, like I said, we started getting into the beef business a little bit more seriously. The dairy industry is very challenging these days. It's a tough business to be in. We are not in control of the price that we receive for our product as far as the milk goes, which makes it very challenging. And so 10 years ago, we decided that we were going to get into beef a little bit more seriously. And we kind of took our toe in the pool a little bit. We started breeding some of our Holstein animals to Angus bulls. And that allowed us to get a better price for bull calves that were being sold off of the dairy, because if they had a black hide, they brought a better price. Then we started raising some of those beef animals for meat production, as you're seeing here. And it really took off. A couple of reasons why we entered the beef business is, number one, we all love a great steak. And so we challenged ourselves to get better and better at it, working on our marbling, working on our carcasses and how much product we're actually getting back. We have a lot of excess pasture land on our farm that we can't always easily get to. On a dairy farm, we always kind of want our cows pretty close to us because they're moving in and out of the herd and around, and we have a lot of land that we could use for pasture, so that made a lot of sense to us. We know cows. One of the big learning curves is that a beef cow is very different than a dairy cow. They are cows, but we had a lot to learn about our beef animals. But we have the crops and the infrastructure to handle cattle. So in addition to our 1,000 cows, we crop about 2,000 acres of land in the area. And so we're harvesting corn for corn silage, and we're also harvesting hay for haylage. So we have lots of feed already in the system that can accommodate our beef herd as well. And we also have barns and tractors and trailers, livestock trailers, all of that kind of stuff already in the mix. So beef really made sense as being a complementary business to our dairy farm. There was interest in marketing. That's where I come into play. I, am a dairy farmer's daughter and a dairy farmer's wife, but I don't love being the dairy farmer, especially on days when it's 0 degrees out in the morning. I like the marketing and I like the public relations aspect of it. And so this really gave me a role to participate more in the business. And then the other real win for us is that we have a lot of processing close by. And I do think, as I've met beef producers throughout the region, really New England and New York, we are so blessed here to have 2 and actually 3 USDA processing facilities in a very short distance to our farms. The one we utilize the most is just 5 miles up the road from us, Eagle Bridge Custom Meats. We do have in the past used Locust Grove, which is over in Argyle. And there's also some custom exempt guys, some custom exempt processors who receive a state license. They don't have a USDA stamp, but that USDA stamp allows us to sell our meat any way we really want to sell our meat. It's the gold standard. And so we are extremely fortunate. We know some people that are driving up from the Hudson Valley all the way up to Eagle Bridge, and they're driving an hour and a half to get their animals processed. It's a 5-minute ride up the road for us, so that's real easy for us. We raise our beef animals right alongside of our dairy animals. So our beef cows typically all have red ear tags. Our dairy animals have the yellow ear tags. And because we are set up for a dairy farm, we have a maternity ward on our farm where we have baby calves born every single day. So it is not out of the ordinary to have a beef calf born, and we can have calves born exactly when we need them born, depending on when we need the product. And because we are set up to raise calves, our beef cows run right up with our dairy calves. So they are seen, they are monitored. And one of the interesting things that processors have told us is that our animals are very docile. And one of the big differences between beef animals and dairy animals are that beef are these hardy, independent, animals. They are bred to be out on the plains, out in Montana, to have no people around. They are hardy, and they really can be hardy. But they can also be very domesticated. And so our beef animals tend to be borderline pets. They are very friendly. They are used to people. They are used to being handled. They run through our milking parlor at times. They are on cattle trailers to go from one pasture to another pasture with our dairy heifers. So they're used to trailers. And so what that means is that when it is time for them to be harvested, they are that much calmer because they're used to seeing people, they're used to being handled, they're used to being on a livestock trailer, and there's less adrenaline going through their system. And it makes the meat a little bit more tender because you don't have that adrenaline rush at the very end when they're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So they're pretty pampered with us and hanging out with the dairy animals. We do keep them on pasture when we can. So typically that is late spring through late fall. They're on various pastures throughout our farmsteads. A lot of times they're in Easton on our farm over there. Sometimes they're over in Buskirk. And sometimes they're over in Petersburg even, because we do own a farm over there with land. So they get as much pasture as they want. When they cannot be on pasture, they are hanging out with our dairy cows and they are consuming TMR, which is a total mixed ration. You can see that on the floor there. They have free range food all the time when they're in our freestall barns. And 60% of that is all homegrown forages. So that's the corn and hay that we are harvesting on our farm for our dairy cows. They're consuming that. Some added soybeans and some added minerals that are in there to complete their diet, but they are getting fed very well when they're not on pasture. And so a lot of times people ask if we're a grass-fed beef operation, and I always say that we're kind of a hybrid because our animals are on pasture when they can, and when they're not, they're being fed forages. And so they are not like your traditional conventional grain finished feedlot operation out in the Midwest. You know, we are a larger operation. We are running a herd of about, I want to say that we have 65 to 70 beef animals at the moment that we care for and we're raising. But they live a pretty good life living with the dairy animals. They live in our freestall barns in the winter. So again, they are hardy stock, but it's really funny because they will hang out in here. This is the inside of our freestall barn. They're on the side walls. You can see that's where their stalls are, where they can sleep. They have free choice food that is fed to them every day and pushed up in order to keep it fresh for them. There's fans for them in the summertime if they are. We do bring them back to the barn before to have them finished, and they're finished on dairy cow feed. So it's not strictly a grain diet, but again, it's that mix of forages and grain that our animals are finished on. So they are very comfortable. They've got back scratchers in our barn. It's clean and tidy. And again, a lot of times they're running through the milking parlor. So they're very used to being around people, and they're pretty docile animals for being beef animals. So from there, they are processed up the road 5 miles from us at Eagle Bridge Meats, which is a USDA inspected facility. They do a top-notch job, not only cutting up our beef, but also packaging and labeling it. Just a really great crew. This is a brother and sister team, another family business that we love being partners with. So we sell our beef a little bit differently than some of the other beef farms in the area. We do sell it at our farm, like lots of others. We do that by appointment only. People can, because it has a USDA stamp on it, we're allowed to sell it by the cut, meaning if you wanted to just buy 1 porterhouse steak, you could buy 1 porterhouse steak. We also do offer 1/8, 4ths, and halves of a beef for a volume discount. So a lot of people like that so that they can stock their freezers. And I also have realized that it's nice to offer pre-made boxes. So it might have 10 pounds of ground beef, a couple, 4 or 5 steaks, some stew beef, some ground beef patties, a couple roasts. And again, I'll be able to offer a volume discount so that when people come to the farm and drive to Buskirk, they're not just getting, the beef that they need for the week. They can bring back a bunch of beef that will be great for their freezers. We do offer wholesale opportunities for those that want to partner with us. And for those, we are working with actually 3 area farm stands. We are in Hand Melon Farm in Greenwich, Moses Farm Stand in Eagle Bridge, and also Engel's Acres, which is down in Troy / Eagle Mills area. They all sell our beef, and it's a really nice complement to their farm stands because people are in there buying their tomatoes and sweet corn and baked goods, and now they can pick up beef and other meat items in order to complete their menu. And then we also sell at some area restaurants. I'm sorry, I'm going a little long. We do offer pork now too. I know this is a beef thing, but I just thought I'd throw that out there because they're so darn cute. My husband is a pig whisperer and loves pigs. And so we've dabbled with them for the past several years. And now we have 13 in the barn across the street. So with more piglets on the way due in April. So Bernie asked me to just speak real briefly about buying local. There's so many benefits to buying local, but number one, you can know your farmer. You can get to know the people that are raising the food that you are putting on your plate and you're feeding your family. And I think that's really important. There's no questions that are off limits for myself and many farmers. We like to share how we're doing it, how we're growing your food. This is the same food that we're feeding our family. So we stand behind it. In doing so, you're supporting local families. A lot of families are working together, and not only on the farm, but it's family businesses that are, like I said, the processor or the guy that's trucking animals or the grain company. There are a lot of people that are getting that product to your plate. And so by shopping local, you're keeping your dollars local. And typically farmers spend their money locally. So when you support a local farm, you're keeping that money within the community. Food tends to be fresher. For our products, we sell everything frozen, so that doesn't really pertain to us too much. Our product has a very long shelf life, but it means less time in transit. It means less fuel consumption. It just means fresh. It is fresher, and a lot of times it is tastier. And if you have never tried local beef from the farm, whether it's mine or Margie's or whoever, it is a world of difference from the beef that you're going to buy in the store. And I do not have on here that it's safer. It can be healthier, but I am a true believer that, you know, all the food, we have the safest and the most affordable food system in the world here. But the taste is second to none when you try local beef for the first time. And the other great thing is that you're eating the landscape. And I really encourage people to try different cuts of beef that are not the popular ones, that get past the New York strip and the ground beef. Try the short ribs, try oxtail, try some of those different things. And so when you're eating local, you're really eating what is available here in this community. And so I think that kind of encourages us to expand our taste buds. So that's it. I know I'm a little over, I'm sorry, Bernie, but you can follow our farm on our Facebook page, which is at Kayashoke Farm. We love to give tours. We used to give tours quite often. With COVID, we kind of slowed down, but I feel like with enough precautions, we can offer that. It's funny that, Bernie asked to do this because just a couple of weeks ago, I had called somebody about looking into making some jerky. So I think this is really cool. Thanks for the tips, Margie. And let me know if I can help you or answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. That was excellent.
Thank you very much, Jess.
Mhm.
All right. We are going to have a time at the end for all panelists to come back on if we have any questions towards the end. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring up our next presenter. All right.
And this has been really helpful learning about sourcing the meats. The last three presenters after Margie have been about sourcing our meats in the area. And some people have asked about lamb also, wondering about where to, in the chat box, where they might get lamb. That's a good question. And also a couple of people in the chat box had mentioned liquid smoke. I think Matt mentioned he likes using liquid smoke in his jerky. And someone else had mentioned, I'm sorry, I didn't record who it was, Trader Joe's has some good salmon jerky. Someone else asked, it was Bethany asked about brand recommendations or types of dehydrators. So we could ask that. We can follow some of those answers later, okay? So
Mike.
We see Mike?
Yep, here I am.
So.
All right. So Mike, you had, just let me know when you want me to cue the few pictures that I've got.
Okie doke. So for anybody who doesn't know me, which is pretty much everybody, my name is Mike Cardis. I've been USDA licensed butcher and slaughterman for going on 20 years now. I started cutting meat when I was very young, working in a pack house, what we used to call pack house or slaughterhouse. And now I am the head butcher and meat manager for ShopRite of Slingerland's, which is right off of Route 85 in Albany. Bertie, did you want me to just touch base on the food safety things I wanted to go over quick that we brought up earlier? That
would be great. Yep.
Okay. So the easy way to remember food safety, or in the industry term, we call it HACCP, which is HACCP, which is Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Points, meaning that it's all a whole bunch of big words that mean basically anytime you're doing anything to a piece of meat or preparing it for use, there are steps involved that can make you potentially create foodborne illness. So that the easy way to remember the most important points of that is FATTOM, FATTOM. And what that stands for is it's the first letter of everything that basically a foodborne illness needs to thrive. So F would be food, which is what we're using for jerky, which is beef. A is acid, meaning that the pH level of what you are using is basically meat is perfect for foodborne illness. So by adding acid or making it more basic, you can help control that and control the bacterial growth, which really doesn't play too much in jerky. Time being the longer it is out and exposed and not refrigerated, the more bacteria have to and faster they have to reproduce. So, when you start the process of making jerky, it's not something you want to start and then kind of get involved in something else and come back and that type of thing. Temperature is a big one. You want to start with refrigerated meat, and you want to try to keep it under 40 degrees as long as possible, because the danger zone for bacteria is 40 to 140. That is where all your foodborne illnesses really love to be. It's where they really love to thrive, reproduce, and make a whole bunch of more foodborne bacteria, which can create problems. Oxygen is another big one, but oxygen can play in your favor because you can cryovac it after you, if you have a food saver, after you make your jerky, you can store it in a jar, as was mentioned before. So the least amount of time that it's exposed to a lot of oxygen and these other factors, it is in your favor. And moisture. Now, when it comes to jerky, moisture is the big thing. Okay, we are removing as much moisture as possible to make a portable, sustainable, transportable product. And when there's very little moisture in a piece of meat, there's nothing for bacteria to reproduce and grow through. So that's basically the nuts and bolts of that. And all of the things that were touched on before come into play here when it comes to washing, rinsing, and sanitizing, and then air drying your whatever you're using to make jerky. And the reason you air dry things is because you never really know how clean the kitchen towel is. You never really know, paper towels, who touched them before, all those kinds of things. But if you wash, rinse, sanitize, and then allow it to air dry, you're good to go. That's how we approach business every day at work. It's what the USDA recommends. It's one of those things where people kind of think, oh, it'll be faster if I dry it with a towel, but it is a little bit safer to dry it and allow it to air dry. But I digress. Moving on to your best cuts for jerky overall. And Bernie, if you could bring up the slide presentation of the actual cow. I have one on my shirt here, but that'll be handy. While we do that, okay, here you go. So if you're looking at this entire cow, the easiest way to figure out which of your most tender cuts are the parts that do the least amount of work. Unfortunately, that's mostly loin meat, and that's also the most expensive part of the cattle. So therefore, we're going to focus on a couple cuts that come from, if you're looking on the rear end of the cow there, you'll see you have your rump, or which would be your bottom round, and a little bit below that, you have your top round, or what we call inside rounds, or in the meat business, we just call them insides. You may notice some places call this top sirloin. In the UK or Britain, or some places they do call it top sirloin. You may notice the Outback Steakhouse, very popular restaurant, advertises a steak as a top sirloin. It is not part of the actual sirloin. It is part of the inside round. Since they are a European somewhat company, they call it the top sirloin. Does that actually come from the actual sirloin cut? That's just what some places call it, similar to where some places call a New York strip a Denver cut, such and so forth. The inside round or top round is probably the most utilitarian piece of meat you can get to make jerky out of. That's both going to give you the leanness that you're looking for, yet tenderness that you want to finish with. Because if it's really, really tough to start with, it's going to be even tougher when you take all the moisture out. Another pretty good cut for jerky that's actually fairly easy to slice as well would be the eye round, and it's still fairly tender. That's going to be a little bit further up on the rear of that cow towards the, it's hooked onto the bottom round. Years ago, we used to get what we call goosenecks, which were the bottom round and eye round put together, and then butchers would have to seam that out. Now, to slice your jerky, it may be easier for you to put it in the freezer for a little while so it firms up a little bit more and you can get a little bit easier, more uniform slices out of it. And the other thing is, the easiest way to get a cut for jerky is to get to know your butcher. Just like you should know your farmer, just like you want to know your pharmacist. Knowing your butcher, find a butcher that you're comfortable with. If anybody wants to come see me, shop right at Slingerland's, let me know you watch this. I'll be more than happy to help you, run you through anything you need to know, and where to find these types of cuts in the meat case. Traditionally, most meat cases, regardless of your supermarket, are set up the same, where all of your loin meats are in one spot, your round cuts are in another. But don't be afraid to ask your butcher and tell them, hey, I'm making a batch of jerky. I'm looking for a nice piece of inside round with the fat cap removed so it's nice and lean. Can you help me out? 99.9% of us more than happy to help you out. That's what we're here for. It's a people business, and most of us, almost all of us that I've run into, are people. We're here to help you. Brenda, I just saw that. A silver side, that's no problem. Come see me at the shop right at Slingerland's. I got them in all day, every day. Okay. Now, I'm going to touch on a few other things here. When it comes to jerky marinades, personally, for years, I only used the wet marinade method, and I tried the dry marinade method, and I don't care for it. And there's a few reasons why. Wet marinade gets a lot more flavor into the jerky. It gives you more options as to what flavors you want. And also, it's basically easier and to tailor to your own needs. A dry marinade, it doesn't add nearly as much flavor, and it starts to pull the moisture out of the meat because there's salt in it. So it does make it a little bit more inconsistent with the finished product of your jerky, because the moisture is already starting to leave the product. So it's not being as consistently dried out. That being said, most of your dry jerky marinade recipes are for that really old West, air dried, hung out to dry jerky method, which isn't usually what people really want to eat when it comes to jerky, because it gets very dry and very hard because it was meant to last a long time without refrigeration and all those other things. Now, I remember somebody had asked about dehydrating in your oven. It can be done. It does make a really good product. A dehydrator is a little easier, but if you're not in a financial position to purchase a dehydrator right away, it can be done. Most ovens, like was touched on before, are set to 170. So what you have to do is just keep an eye on your jerky, because it's going to dry out a little faster. And if you research, or if people want to reach out to me, I have recipes for making jerky in your oven. yes, you do pasteurize your jerky after you do it in the oven, because it's still, when you're talking about making jerky, the jerky doesn't know whether it's in an oven or a dehydrator. It just knows that it's in a warm place with circulating air. That's it. So you can use an oven, but you have to monitor it because it's going to go a little faster. And you will find that the recipes that call for making jerky in an oven call for it to leave your oven door cracked open a little bit. And that's how you get your air circulation, is that the oven basically is constantly on because heat rises, it comes out the front of that door, okay, and the air is circulating through. It does take longer because a oven doesn't have a fan in it like a traditional dehydrator does. But it can be done. I'll warn you, it is quite messy. So if messiness or cleaning up isn't quite your thing, get a dehydrator. That's all I have to say about that. I do not recommend making jerky out of chicken. I know there's companies that do it, and honestly, you're best leaving that to them. In the interest of keeping everything simple and safe, I'm just going to concentrate on making beef jerky and beef jerky only. One other thing I did want to say.
Mike,
Yeah,
do you want me to go ahead and stop sharing? Or are there other pieces you'd like here?
I can touch base on one other thing really quick, Bernie, is when you're looking at that cow, there are a few other cuts that can be used for jerky that will work well, but they're not always that readily available. One would be the true sirloin tip, which is the knuckle, which you can see, excuse me, hooks on. It may not be in that diagram that well, but if you do see sirloin tip, ask your butcher for exactly what somebody mentioned earlier, which is a silver side. A silver side is really, really good for jerky. It's really, really good for what we call minute steaks or sandwich steaks. And it's really easy to slice, because one thing I should have touched on before is that when you're slicing any beef for jerky, you want to cut as much across the grain as possible. So if you look at a piece of top round, for instance, it's going to have what looks like a whole bunch of little strings running one way. And then the other side is going to have this nice open face on it with a little bit of marbling through it. That's the way you want to cut. You want to cut across the grain, because if you cut with the grain and you go to eat that jerky, you're going to do some chewing. The few other things I wanted to touch on is that I'm really glad we had the farmers on here tonight, because without farmers, we don't eat. That's the bottom line. It's that simple, cut and dry. Without farmers, we don't eat. And the fact that local farming is so important to me. Dairy farmers, cattle farmers, vegetable farmers, I can't stress enough. Your local folks are the ones that really are the places, when you can, to buy your food. It's fresher. There's people that live in this community that depend on it, and they're great folks. That's it. You're keeping your finances where they belong. And that's all I'll have to say about that. Yes, and I just noticed somebody, the Nesco food dehydrator is great. I have a food dehydrator. I don't know the brand of it off the top of my head. I bought it at Walmart a million years ago. It's a round food dehydrator. It's got the trays. You can stack them all up on it. And it works great. And it wasn't very expensive. And when it comes to making jerky, overall, simpler is better. The recipe is simpler is better. The dehydrator is simpler is better, because it is kind of a time-consuming, involved process. So the easier you can make it on yourself, the more often you're going to want to do it, because it's not a whole big, convoluted thing. And I think that should just about wrap it up. Once again, if anybody needs any help with anything, you can find me on Facebook. Most people call me Mike the Butcher. Reach out to me at ShopRite at Slingerlands. Even if you just have a random question you need help with, call me at the store. I'm there every day but Wednesday.
Thank you so much. That was so informative, and you just reassured us of all the other things we had been learning, but you gave us such concise ideas with the safety, and we're dying to know what your favorite jerky is.
Mine,
Yeah.
I'm a simpler is better guy. I like, I don't use the teriyaki marinade. I make my own, but it's really simple. It's just a mixture of soy sauce, brown sugar, black pepper. I like a little crushed red pepper in it to give it a little spice, and a little liquid smoke. And that's really it. Yes, you can absolutely use London broil. You just want to cut it the same way. Your London broil is going to be shaped like this. Sometimes they're shaped a little bit like a kidney, and you just want to cut directly across that grain. And nice even slices. If some of them are a little cockeyed, it's okay. Don't drive yourself nuts. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Bernie, I was going to say, if you want, I know this is going to be broadcasted. What I can do when I get back to work Thursday is I can make a little demonstration video, if you will, about the easiest way to slice jerky off of a couple different cuts. And then if you want, just attach that to that. If that's possible, I don't know.
Actually, yeah, sure. We'll talk about that afterward. That sounds good. Thanks for the offer.
No problem.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah. And we next have Brian Panzari, I'm sorry. And he is the New York Environmental Conservation Officer and for Rensselaer County. And Mike, Bernie has introduced you in the past. We are so glad you're here also. I feel like we're learning so much from so many different aspects of this, our sources of meat. And now we're gonna learn more about the environmental conservation aspect of it too. Mike, thank you. Please join us. I'm not sure if Mike can hear us, Bernie.
So Mike, or Brian, if you just want to unmute yourself.
Ready to go. Test, test.
I'm sorry, it's Brian. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm Brian Panzari. I'm a environmental conservation officer, Rensselaer County. Not as prepared as the other presenters. No pictures, I'm sorry. I'm not working now. This is not on duty, so this is my Capital District sportsman attire. Mike, I know Mike. I'm friends with Mike the Butcher. He does a fantastic job. I saw him over Christmas. He hooked me up with some beautiful prime rib. And I believe Mike had some specials with some other stuff, but if you want to learn and get great service, go see Mike. Marjorie, I'm not sure if I know your farm, but it looks like a great job. The Zim farms I'm familiar with. They do a beautiful job. Their farms are so clean and well kept. I drive by when I'm patrolling. I always comment on how well they are kept, beautiful farms. As far as the conservation, the DEC, I guess my expertise in beef jerky is the consumption of it. As far as making it, I'll leave it up to the experts, but I do eat it. As a conservation officer, the DEC, our responsibility, what we do is obviously wildlife management. And wildlife management, we want to ensure the future generations, the existence of the fish and wildlife for years to come. And the best way for wildlife management to happen, through conservation, but where I excel is through the laws, the rules and regulations. Hunting is an important tool if it's done properly for wildlife management. We want to make sure the animals have their carrying capacities. We want them to stay healthy, okay, through proper management. We want to prevent disease and starvation. So through good management, good hunting practices is very essential. I patrol the hunting seasons, obviously mostly start in October 1st. There's a northern and southern zones, and it goes up through about the third week in December. We have our early special bow seasons. We go into a small crossbow. Then November, we get into our regular season. And then in December, we have our special bow muzzleloading seasons. And the department issues so many tags for doe. We call them doe permits, buck tags with your license, which gives someone the privilege to harvest deer. With my job, I dispatch a lot of injured deer on the road. And that's another reason we have to have hunting, proper wildlife management, because the deer do destruction, orchards, farms, vegetable farms, tree farms, and auto accidents. When I do have to dispatch a deer, I confiscate a deer, whether it's taken illegally. I want to make sure that as best as possible, that animal, that meat can be utilized in some way. And Bernie had mentioned the Capital District Sportsman page. I started exactly 2 years ago. And I started the page just to have a little bit of transparency and to share my experiences and educate people as far as the rules, regs, the laws, and the natural resources, the fish and wildlife. And it's a private page. I wanted to keep it primarily local, Capital District and surrounding areas. And we're up over 6,500 members now. There's a lot of people on there with a lot of experience and knowledge. It's wonderful. But as far as the deer that I confiscate, the sheriff's department has helped me with deer dispatch on the side of the road. We've donated, I think, these past 2 seasons, over 40 deer to needy families. We also donate to food pantries. I'd like to give a shout out to some local, we talked about some local businesses. The West End Market is a good place. People like to bring their venison for processing. Eagle Bridge, Route 66 and Wine and Skill, and Greg Stratton's. I don't know if Greg does venison anymore, but pigs and beef, does a fantastic job. And Greg has donated a few pigs that he's processed for families in need. And I want to thank him again. And Route 66 has also donated things to the Capital District Sportsman. I guess.
So I think you did. Yeah, I think.
Go ahead, Bernie.
I think Brian, actually, the Back to Home Basics has been, about tackling a topic, and talking about the sustainability within a household, within the immediate area. And so, having Brian here to talk a little bit as, potentially harvesting, hunting as possible sources for jerky is really also what we wanted to make sure you're all keeping in the back of your mind. And it also enhances our environment, and the need to do it properly, and go through the proper channels, the licensing, the seasons, and following the guidance set out by DEC. So I'm thinking, I'm just kind of also watching the chat. I think at this point, Mary Lee, what do you think about, I'll bring all the panelists back in and we'll see if there's any last minute questions. I know there was a question about lamb. I did mention that Harvest Connection, of course, is the source to go to for possible local. And I do know that there are lamb people who do produce lamb on that site. And I'm trying to think, I know that also there are plenty of farms that are not on Harvest Connection that also would be a source for lamb in the area. So I'm just looking for Mike here to bring him in. Mary Lee, how are we doing? Do we have any questions that we have not tackled?
We had a couple.
Okay.
Well, it was one was about the lamb. And I think that Mike had addressed the idea of chicken and turkey. That's not really suggested. It can be done, but it's not as easy to be as safe as could be for that. And I think Bethany got taken care of with her dehydrator recommendation. I think that right now is it that I'm seeing. Did you want to say something, Brian?
Yeah, I can you still?
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Yes, we can.
so we are in the we're in the late stages to secure a facility to have an outdoor school, as you mentioned, the Capital District Sportsman Center. We should know very soon. We're taking donations for that, but part of that project, I talked to Mike, the butcher, and a few other people I know. We will be having classes on meat cutting, presentations, and actually how to make beef jerky. I have a few friends that do a very good job with that, and they would be more than happy and have you involved with some classes, and we will be announcing that on the Facebook page, and we will have a website for the school as well.
Great.
Excellent.
Very good. Okay, so you can find him on Facebook.
Oh, geez.
Let's see. Anything else, Mary Lee?
Yeah, I have I just have one little thought here.
Okay.
I just wanted to take a look, a little quiz. And the question is, according to the USDA, which item does not belong for air drying? And hint, we are in New York State. Think about that. New York State. What item may not be the best thing to dry in the air? And I think we touched upon that. Anybody see which one? How about that hint? And does anybody know why? Put that in the chat box. Anybody know why New York State does not really recommend air drying of beef jerky? And maybe, yeah. Anybody? Temperature and I think Mike. Go ahead, Mike.
Consistent moisture.
There you go. Too much moisture in there. The humidity, New York State.
Absolutely.
Your peanut butter jelly sandwiches stay moist all day compared to out in Utah.
Right.
Or
Well,
someplace.
that's why when I touched base on the dry marinade, dry marinades were made for making cowboy style jerky in areas where way out west, where the relative humidity is very, very low all day, every day. And that's why they could do that type of process out there. It is not conducive to do in New York State.
Right. Thank you. Another comment I wanted to make was the source, a great source for food preservation is so easy to preserve. It's Cooperative Extension in the University of Georgia. Highly recommended source for all sorts of food preservation, including jerky. The extension offices, of course, use their science, and the USDA supported evidence for all involved. So please, you can check that out. We'll have that on our references that come out. And and then also, what questions might you have for our panelists, right, Bernie?
Exactly.
Anybody seeing questions? We've been answering quite a few right along the way.
I have a question.
Brian?
Mike, how much are your porterhouse going for right now?
I told you missed the sale last week, Brian. They were $4.99. I had ribeyes for $4.99 a pound last week. Porterhouse for $4.99 a pound last week. You know where I am. There is one thing I wanted to touch base on, Bernie, that I just thought of. Am I unmuted? Yes, I am. Okay. I want to just touch base really quick on beef grading. because it's gotten quite confusing in the last few years with companies naming things that their own brand. In the eyes of the USDA, there is only 3 grades of beef that you will really find in any supermarket or grocery store for sale. And that is Select, Choice, and Prime. There's a lot of confusion out there in the meat business right now where places are calling things premium Angus and top this and that type of thing. And if you really want to know the grade of the beef that you're buying, ask your butcher, because he's going to be honest with you. You will see a product out there called certified Angus beef. You have to remember that the certified Angus beef does not necessarily come from a certified Angus cow. It is a brand and not a grade. Okay, it is labeled as the top 3% of choice beef that's in the market, meaning that out of the choice beef that's available, it's the best of choice beef, but it is still choice beef. Same with there's a few places that advertise Hereford lean and that type of thing. But when you want to know what you're really purchasing grade wise, ask your butcher what the actual grade stamp on that product is, because it's something that it's one part of the meat business that does get quite confusing to people, and it can become quite frustrating at times too.
Thank you. Also, I wanted to point out in the chat box, Jessica has pointed out that she said, feel free to reach out if you're looking for sourced beef in larger quantities, especially the rounds that would be good for jerky. I have a bunch right now. And Margaret says, thank you, Mike. And I have a question for Brian. Brian, are you still here? Brian, I have a question. I got this jacket. It's from the 1940s, and I think there's a hunting license pinned to the back of it. Can I still use it? Okay.
You could use it.
I thought
once.
you were going to offer for sale. How much? What size
I'm covering
jacket is
wards.
that?
No, Brian, I saw it first.
That big safety pin.
Oh, I thought you
Come
wanted
on.
to sell the jacket.
No, I want to know if I can use the license.
Let me
No.
see the license.
No, I can't. I'm kidding.
I know,
I remember
but
my folks, my siblings, my brothers, my parents, my father would always
Oh,
hunt. He'd
yeah.
have that big, huge plastic license with that big safety pin on the back.
I do collect the years ago they had the buttons. They're hunting buttons. That
Oh.
was your license.
We'll
I
keep
do
our eyes
collect
out
them.
for you. Okay, we'll keep our eyes out for that. Everybody heard that? Brian's looking for something. Gonna help him. I can't thank the farmers enough. Margie and Jessica Zim, Marjorie Anatriello, we really appreciate, and I appreciate Mike and Brian pointing that out, and Bernie constantly, that the farmers are where we get our food, our local farmers. We cannot thank you enough. And you're right, Jessica, you're out there at 6 a.m. in 0 degrees. And that's how we get to eat so well. And we really do appreciate that. And we appreciate, Brian, you're out there taking care of the environmental aspects of this, and as your compassion with the animals is appreciated from listening to that, and we're hearing that, and we really do appreciate all sides of that. And then Brian, right? And then Mike, also, you're so excited about the butchering and the caring of it and the way you're processing the meat so in such a healthy way. So I feel fortunate too. Somebody else on our website or in the chat box said, boy, you guys live in a great community. I'm new to this area. And you're right. We really do. We have people from out of town on this site, and we keep it, it's a great place to live, but it's because of the people. And I think Cooperative Extension is a great organization, building community and pulling us all together. So I personally just wanted to thank everybody very much. And before you go, I would like to ask everybody that's still on to please put in the chat box what you'd like to see next for webinars. And I welcome the panelists to please tell us what you're interested in. Cooperative Extension is responsive to our community members. That's what we're trying to do. We want to respond to what you're interested in and need. And that's what our Back to Home Basics webinar and all of our programs at Cooperative Extension is all about, responding to our community interests and needs. So please put that in the chat box. We are developing more programs constantly and more webinars like this, and we're so pleased you all came together. Last thing I want to point out is one of the next webinars. First, look at the YouTube videos. Again, we have some great ones on birds in your backyard. So just a reminder that they are on the YouTube video. And then one of the next ones is going to be emergency preparedness. So I have my crank radio getting ready to put in my emergency box, emergency for peace of mind, and the solar powered cell phone recharger, $15. Just saying. When everybody else's phone runs out, when the electricity's gone, you're just going to be still talking, getting your needs met, taking care of people. So there you go. So this is a crank radio. So we do have great programs coming up in the near future. I just wanted to point that out. And we thank Bernie for her leadership, and we have to say outstanding, and we appreciate all the staff, Cooperative Extension. But
well, and I want to say thank you, Mary Lee. Mary Lee actually is our chair of our board of directors, and actually has been the driving force behind our Back to Home Basics. And thank you so much for being willing to host us tonight, Mary Lee. Fantastic job. So stay tuned. I want to thank Jessica, Marjorie, Brian, Mike, and Mary Lee for all the efforts and all the time. And, we hopefully will get some great ideas on future topics that we'd like to address. So without further ado, I thank you, and I hope everybody out there who isn't on the panel is able to take something great away. We'll say good night from there.
good night.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.